So sometimes there's some confusion about when you should get a SUDS. And I think some of the best sessions I've ever done is the answer to that question would be never. Because the client just moved through phase 4, they're moving along, there's an adaptive shift. I don't have to do much. The adaptive shift is very solid, it's secure. They have this kind of overwhelming sense of well-being. They kind of sometimes they'll stand up and like, I'm done. And so there wasn't an opportunity or a necessity to get a SUDS to see if phase 5 happened. Yeah, it happened. I watched it happen right before my very eyes. So I don't say, ho, you have to sit down here and we have to go back to this negative image and positive thought. We have to yeah, no, you don't have to. But overall, pretty much, I get a SUDS. I go to phase 5. Sometimes phase 5 is fragile. It takes a little bit more work than that. But I would say those are really rare, but magical sessions. And the answer to the question, how often did you get a SUDS? I didn't get a SUDS at all. Never. It just EMDR is a self-healing thing, and it just kind of did what it does. But usually we have to work a little bit harder than that. So what is the answer? Like, how often do I get a SUDS? I try not to get a SUDS very often at all, because the goal of the process is to get the client out of phase 4 into phase 5, as quickly as possible, processing all the information that needs to be processed in an efficient way. And one way to help that client get through there quickly is to quit asking them questions, including what's the SUDS? So one thing that people forget is that you're allowed to watch the client and you can make a guess at what do you think the SUDS is? You're the clinician. What's it look like? You don't need to ask. If they're holding those paddles and their knuckles are white and it's been going on for 10 minutes, I don't need to ask. It's high. I don't need to interfere. Now, if I'm worried, like, okay, that's a bit long and they've been tense and tight for a while. Okay, so you might want to break the action. Okay, let's go get a SUDS. Let's see where we are. You can use the SUDS to sort of break up the action to take care of the client. But one thing I think that newly trained therapists, even people who are experienced, they underestimate their ability to just answer that question themselves without asking. Like, what do you think the SUDS is? Wow, it looks like it's gone down. I don't think it's a 2, but it's certainly a 5 or 4. Okay, and you can keep going without interfering and letting that process happen. So I just think, I've heard someone was discussing this and somebody said, well, I was trained to, after every 3 sets, ask for a SUDS. Like, no. This is kind of client-centered. This is a self-healing thing. So mainly you're supposed to just watch. And if the client's moving through material, you don't want to stop and ask, break it off and take them up to the SUDS and have them go back unless there's a good reason for it. So sometimes I tend to not get a lot of, I don't query the SUDS very often. I try to get the client to move through, especially if there's no need for an interweave. If there's nothing, there's no loops, there's no blocks, and they're just moving along, I just let them move along. So again, it's really this idea of 2 things, I think. One is, what do you think the SUDS is? And if you can make a pretty good guess, don't ask, because you already kind of know the answer to that. And certainly don't count sets and say after so many sets I'm going to get a SUDS. That's completely incorrect. And so the less frequently often is the better, I think, because the idea is to get the client out of phase 4 as quickly as possible, and by stopping and asking and taking them back and starting again without a good reason. I mean, if you have a clinically justifiable reason, by all means, you can do that. And this is just a short video. I mean, I could talk about, this for an hour, but the bottom line is, don't overdo the SUDS query. That's my message in this secret.